All right, let's see if we can finish up chapter 18 today. There's a few things I want to go over regarding the trials of Christ, because we talked about the Garden of Gethsemane. We talked about the Peter's denial. But John basically talks about 3 trials, but in actuality, there were 6 trials. And for whatever reason, John condenses it all down. John leaves a lot of interesting things out. I actually added that to my intro for the next time I teach John. But you'll notice some very interesting things about John. He never mentions demons. He doesn't mention Jesus praying. And you're all going to go, what? No, yes, he does. Oh, you'll see. He doesn't. There's no, I don't believe there's any parables in John. He doesn't talk about parables. There's just a lot of interesting things. And the reason for that, too, is, well, there's reasons for each of those things, but the reason for that is that John really had a specific agenda in writing his gospel. The church already had Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and Acts, and all the epistles for decades by the time he writes the Gospel of John and 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. So it really does prove out that he had a specific reason for writing the gospel. He was trying to get a specific message across for a specific reason. But one of the things that he decides to leave out is he condenses the trials of Jesus, because there's actually 6 trials, and I'll run you through those and give you the let's see, do I have those? Oh, hold on, did I put those here? Hold on, let me make sure I put those here. Oh yeah, here they are. Okay. And I gotta add those to my notes. I gotta get my notes a little bit better organized. So you have 3 Jewish trials, one with Annas, one with Caiaphas, and one with the Sanhedrin. You find the trial of Annas in John 18, 12 through 14. You find the trial of Caiaphas in Luke 22, 54 through 65. And then you find the trial of the Sanhedrin in Luke 22, 66 through 77. Now, let's talk about those trials. Those trials, we all know, were kangaroo courts, but the interesting thing is, I kind of wrote this up, so let me probably be easier and more concise to read what I wrote than to try and the trials of Jesus before the Jewish authorities, the religious trials, displayed the incredible hypocrisy of the Jews and the Jewish leaders. They showed that they really had no regard for the law themselves when it was inconvenient. So one of the things that these trials showed is that for all of their talk about the law, they really had no regard for the law whatsoever. They just did not. And Jesus mentioned that too. He mentioned how they abused the law and used the law. for their own purposes. In at least 7 ways, these trials were illegal. These are at least 7 that I could think of. Okay. 1, no trial was to be held during the feast time. There wasn't supposed to be any trials being held during Passover or any feast time. That was not lawful. Okay. 2, each member of the court was to vote individually to convict or acquit, but Jesus was convicted by acclamation or proclamation. 3, if the death penalty was given, a whole day, 24 hours, had to pass before the sentence was carried out. However, only a few hours passed before Jesus was placed on the cross. Jesus's trials went from 2 a.m. in the morning to 10 a.m. I believe that's right. I believe it was 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. So, number 4, the Jews had no authority to execute anyone. Number 5, no trial was to be held at night, but this trial was held before dawn. 6, the accused was to be given counsel and representation. Jesus was given none of those things. And 7, the accused was not to be asked any self-incriminating questions. Therefore, when they asked Jesus if he was the Christ, that was an illegal question. So I want us to understand that these trials were completely illegal. And you have 3 Jewish trials and 3 Gentile trials. The interesting thing is the 3 Jewish trials, Jesus is proclaimed guilty all 3 times. The 3 Gentile trials, Jesus is proclaimed innocent, found innocent all 3 times. So that's interesting. So you have the trial of Annas, Caiaphas, and the Sanhedrin. Now, then you have the Gentile trials. You have the trial of Pilate. You find in Luke 23, 1 through 6. Then he sends Jesus to Herod, Luke 23, 8 through 12. And then Herod sends him back to Pilate, Luke 23, 13 through 25. So those are all the trials of Christ. What is also interesting is that Jesus follows the kind of the ceremony of the Passover lamb. He enters into Jerusalem on the 10th day of Nisan. That is called the Lamb Selection Day. The 10th day of Nisan is the day they select from one of the herds in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, the Passover lamb that will be used. And then the Passover lamb is brought into the Jerusalem, and there's a lot of fanfare that goes on, and the Pharisees are there, and everyone's making it. Well, Jesus preempted that. When Jesus came in, all the fanfare was about him, not about the lamb, which is why the Pharisees got mad and told his disciples to be quiet. So then once the lamb is brought into Jerusalem, the lamb is taken directly to the temple to be presented. Where did Jesus go when he rode into Jerusalem? He went right into the temple and turned over the tables, presenting himself as the lamb. Then the lamb is to be inspected. Jesus was inspected 6 times. And interestingly enough, the 3 illegal trials declared him guilty, and the 3 legal trials declared him innocent. Very interesting. So that, I just wanted to kind of touch base on that so that we have an understanding, and you guys can chew on that a little bit. But we have, let's see, let me just read part of this. No, you know what? I'm going to make Pat do it because my eyes are blurry. Pat, would you read? Let's see, what section is this? Read. Let's see. 18 through.
Excuse me.
Just read 18 through 40.
Okay, goodness.
I'm sorry, 28 through 40.
I'll read 8. Okay, right, 28. Okay, John 18, 28 through 40. This is the NASV. Then they led Jesus from Caiaphas into the praetorium, and it was early, and they themselves did not enter into the praetorium, so that they would not be defiled, but might eat the Passover. Therefore Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered and said to him, "If this man were not an evildoer, we would not have delivered him to you." So Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews said to him, "We are not permitted to put anyone to death, to fulfill the word of Jesus which he spoke, signifying by what kind of death he was about to die." Therefore Pilate entered again into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Are you saying this on your own initiative, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate answered, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests delivered you to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm." Therefore Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say correctly that I'm a king. For this I have been born, and for this I have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, "I find no guilt in him, but you have a custom that I release someone for you at the Passover. Do you wish then that I release for you the king of the Jews?" So they cried out again, saying, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a robber.
So, so in the first trial, oh, hold on, get down. Yeah, here we go. So now we're at this point we're at the third. Well, he doesn't mention Herod, and then coming back to Pilate. So we'll just talk about this situation here. So the first encounter that Pilate has with the Jews, he says, "What is your charge against this man?" And what do they say? "We wouldn't have handed him over to you if you weren't a criminal." You notice they don't give a charge? So the whole thing is smelly. And Pilate knew it. I mean, Pilate could tell. So then the Jews, that then he says, oh, hold on. Then he says, well, then take him away and judge him. If he's a criminal, take him away and judge him yourself. You're certainly not telling me what he's done. And so then they come back and they say, well, yeah, but only the Romans are permitted to execute someone. We can't put him to death. So now Pilate's like, oh, so you want to kill him. You don't just want to send him to jail. You want to kill him. So then Pilate has this talk with Christ, and he says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he says, "Is that your own question, or did others tell you about me?" Why do you think he said it like that? Come on now. Yes, Amy.
To just kind of confirm that it's his own people that are accusing him, that the Jews are accusing him. Like, who's telling you, that there's no guilt there, that there's nothing he's done wrong, like, like you're just following what others want you to say, or Pilate is following that, or he's saying that Pilate is listening to the wrong things, something like that. I don't know.
No, I don't think that's why.
Okay.
My guess is that Jesus wants them to acknowledge him as the King of the Jews.
I think that's as part of it is Pilate having to take responsibility, Pilate having to step up. But okay, let's talk about it more.
Okay, I got a guess. Could it be that Pilate is posing the question to Jesus to check to make sure, his kingdom is not a threat to the Romans or to the Jewish?
Well, he doesn't care if it's a threat to the Jews.
Well, no, that it's a threat to being that, Roman. He's trying to keep peace and trying to keep the status quo, so everything's hunky-dory with the Romans, and so he's questioning Jesus to see if his kingdom is an actual kingdom, and that, is that his kingdom that he's supposedly representing a threat to his Roman status quo.
What does Pilate answer him when he says are you saying this on your own initiative, or did others tell you about me?
He says he's not a Jew.
So I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and chief priest deliver you to me. What have you done? So Pilate, number one, Pilate doesn't even understand what the problem is of him claiming to be king of the Jews. I mean, he gets there might be some political turmoil there, but he's like, so are you the king of the Jews? I mean, are you? I think there's probably some aspect of what we were talking about being a threat. Are you going to stir up problems? Are you going to stir up troubles? And Christ is very direct with Pilate, and saying, why are you asking me if I'm king of the Jews? Do you see me as king of the Jews? Are you saying this because they said it? Or are you asking on your own initiative? Have you seen something in me that would cause you to ask that? He's forcing Pilate into a corner. You see what he does. He forces him into a corner. And it's really interesting because the way Pilate ends the conversation is the way a lot of people say today. What is truth? What is truth? Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom was of this world, my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm. So at this point, what Jesus is basically saying is, I'm not here to fight. My kingdom's not of this world. And so Pilate's now, oh, this is a spiritual thing. It's a religious thing. So Pilate says, so you are a king. And Jesus answered, you say correctly that I am a king. For this I have been born, and for this I have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. And then Pilate says, yeah, what's truth? In other words, what is Pilate saying? Amy.
It's all relative. It doesn't
Well,
mean
yeah, that's kind of what the meaning is, kind of. But what is he basically showing?
well, it's showing that he doesn't believe in Jesus either.
He's not interested, or he doesn't care.
He doesn't hear. He doesn't hear. And this is the whole thing that Jesus forces him into the corner, that he doesn't recognize Jesus as a king of the Jews. Then your own initiative. He doesn't recognize the truth. And then when Pilate walks away, he says, when he had said this, he went out again, Pilate, and said to the Jews, I find no guilt in him. The guy's not guilty. He hasn't done anything. And then he tries to get Jesus off by saying, look, you have this custom where I release someone to you on Passover, so why don't I release this guy? Because in Luke, it was clear to Pilate that they were jealous of him. And there's no doubt that Pilate must have heard rumors about a Jew going around healing the sick, and there's no way he didn't hear about that. Because also in Luke, Pilate really wanted to see Jesus, or not Pilate, Herod really wanted to see Jesus. So Herod knew about Jesus and wanted to see him. So Pilate must have known as well. Remember, Pilate is in charge of Israel. He's got to make an account for everything that's going on in Israel. Believe me, as his people out there keeping an eye on things.
Was this the same Herod that killed the firstborn boys?
No, that was Herod the Great. This is Herod Antipas.
Oh,
That Herod died. Remember, it said when he had died, Joseph went back to Nazareth. But also in Luke, remember that the Jews threatened Herod. Basically, you're no friend of Caesar's. Someone find that for me. Okay. Someone find that for me. I should have it, but I don't. Someone want to find that? Who's my volunteer? Robert, you want to look that up? Pat, you want to look that up? Anyone look that up?
Hey, can you repeat exactly what you want us to look for again?
When they threatened Pilate, the Pharisees, you're no friend of Caesar's, and then he says, let his blood be on our heads and on our children's heads, which is really funny because in Acts they get mad at the disciples and say, why are you bringing this man's blood on our heads?
Right. Was that in Matthew 27:25?
I don't know.
Let me look it up.
I'm getting old, you know. I remember all these things anymore. My throat is just really gonzoed. I had food poisoning over the weekend. Oy. I'm just going to tell you right now, I could never be bulimic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how people do that. My throat is all messed up. I still don't feel good.
There's a little flu or something going on that's a different kind of flu that's making people sick to their tummy.
Oh, really? Well, you know what? I'm working on 2 jobs right now, and they're both kind of delayed. So I've been doing substitute teaching, which, by the way, I love. Is a lot of fun.
With kids?
With kids, elementary.
Oh yeah, it's going around the schools. No wonder that's where you got it. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got it.
Yes.
I think, let's see. I want to make sure I'm getting the right ask here. What evil has this man done? They kept shouting all the more, saying, "Crucify him!" When Pilate saw that he was accomplishing nothing, but rather that a riot was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to that yourselves." And all the people said, "His blood shall be on us and our children." And then
No, that's not the one. The one I'm thinking about is when they say you're no friend of Caesar's.
John 19:12.
Oh, no way. Really?
Mhm. Next chapter.
As a result, Pilate made forced to release him. If you oh, you're right. No wonder I couldn't find it. Oh, there you go. Well, you know what? I'm going to save that then for next week. I got a great little background I wanted to tell you, but I'll save it for next week. Okay.
Mhm.
So when he had said this, he went out, and so they cried out again, saying, not this man, but Barabbas. Now, Barabbas was a robber. So you have really what is playing out is the depravity of man on display. And you have it being displayed from the people that really should not be displayed, from supposed to be the most religious, holy leaders of the chosen people. And here they are performing 3 illegal trials and unjustly didn't even bring a charge against him. They had no charge. And no, he's a criminal. Oh, okay, how is he a criminal? What? And that's why I asked Jesus, what did you do? They're not telling me what you did. What did you do? Did you're king of the Jews, or you're getting ready to lead some rebellion here? It's like, who told you that? You're going to have to decide for yourself, Herod, who I am. Yes, Amy.
I was just thinking of something interesting. Okay, in the 10 Commandments, it says, "Thou shalt no have any other gods before me." Okay, so with Jesus saying that he's King of the Jews, he's basically saying he's God, right? But the Jews,
No, not necessarily.
no.
No, because Herod claimed to be king of the Jews.
Oh, okay.
David was king of the Jews.
Okay,
Solomon
so
was king of the Jews.
but when Jesus, okay, let's put it this way: when Jesus was, going around, that area, Jerusalem and all that, he was saying that he was God, right?
Well, I mean, he said before Abraham was, I am.
Right.
But he was
So,
not only saying it, he was proving it.
right. But interesting. Now, why wouldn't the Jews have said, well, the crime is he thinks he's God, and that's a
Well, at some point they do. They say it's blasphemy. You make yourself equal with God.
oh, okay, okay.
So
But
I
they
mean,
don't right there. They don't do it.
but see, the problem is if you're gonna convict him of blasphemy, of claiming to be divine, but yet all the proofs of being divine he has done. If you're going to convict somebody for being an electrician, say, oh, he's not really an electrician, so we're going to sue him and take away his license and take him to court, and then he's cross-examined and shows that he has a very in-depth knowledge of electrical engineering, then guess what? You can't be found guilty. Jesus claimed to be deity, but he raised the dead. He walked on water. He controlled the weather. He did things that the Jews firmly believed only God could do. He forgave sins. And when they said, you can't forgive sins because you're not God, he said, how about this? And healed the man who was lame. So he brought forth evidence again and again and again, real hardcore evidence backing up every claim he made. And that's why he said, for what miracle do you condemn me? In other words, Jesus was saying, what proof do you have that I'm not who I say I am? Because all of these things prove that I am according to your own law. So all they could do is say you committed blasphemy, but they had absolutely no proof to back that up.
Right.
Blasphemy can only happen when what you say is proven to be wrong.
Right.
That's why prophets who made prophecies that didn't come true were taken out and stoned in the Old Testament.
Mhm.
Right? So you have to look at the fact that, and this is why they didn't give Jesus representation, because a lawyer would have said, oh, wait, did he in fact walk on water? Did he control the weather? Did he raise the dead? He would have brought all those up. He would have brought all those witnesses in, and they could have not proved that he committed blasphemy. But they knew that. They knew that. They could never hold a legal trial. It had to be an illegal trial. And so they couldn't tell Pilate he's committed blasphemy, and that's why we want to kill him. And because eventually, too, Pilate could say, well, what's the blasphemy? Well, he says he's king of the Jews. Well, so what? Are you getting ready to do a rebellion? Nope. I'm not of this world. And my followers are not of this world. I'm here to proclaim truth. Well, so what? Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. Hey, this guy's not guilty of anything, man. He's just maybe he's a religious nut or whatever, but he hasn't broken any Roman law for sure.
Robert had.
And you have not proved to me that he's broken Jewish law. And when he tells them to go back and try him, they know they can't. They can't go back and try him. Because as soon as the majority of the people wake up in the morning and find out Jesus is on trial, what do you think is going to happen? They had to rush this thing through and get him on that cross before people knew what was going on. And kill him before the people really knew what was going on. That's why they had to take him at night. They knew that. Oh, Robert, you have your hand up. I didn't see that.
So the legal system at that time was doesn't have the provision of innocent until proven guilty, right? It's guilty until proven innocent.
I don't know how they saw that, but either way, whether they believed you were guilty till proven innocent or innocent till proven guilty, if you look at the law, people were tested according to the truth, and they weren't assumed guilty or innocent. They were accused, and they said, okay, well, let's test them and try them and see whether they're innocent or whether they're guilty. All we know, we're not saying they're guilty, we're not saying they're innocent, but we are saying they're accused of something. So, but they had certain rights. They had the right not to self-incriminate. They had the right to counsel, to be defended by a counsel. And he was given none of that. They had the right to have their trial during the day where the populace could see what was going on, so that witnesses could be found. He had that right. They took all of his rights away.
So was Jesus' trial under the Roman judiciary system, or was it like a hybrid between Jewish and Roman?
It was the Jews could inflict certain punishments under their law, but they couldn't kill anyone.
Oh.
The power of life and death only belonged to the Roman Empire. And they wanted to kill him. That's the only option they had. They had to get rid of him, and they had to get rid of him quick before the people found out. They couldn't put him in jail because people would have come and torn down the jail.
Yeah.
They had to get rid of him, and they had to get rid of him quick.